We almost have this expectation of the other person should be, but like that's how they show love, is that they know how I feel. They know what I want. They know what I'm expecting. And it's so unrealistic.
Welcome to the Kicked in the Junk podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss the low times in life, where we talk about when the things that just hit us so hard and it feels like we can never recover from. We discuss it all and look at, the raw emotion that we feel during those times. But more importantly, what would we learn from these low moments and how sometimes those moments catapult us into the next amazing thing that we didn't even see coming. Hello world, on this episode of Kicking the Junk, I have an awesome discussion with Rita Henstock. Rita is a recently realtor who has her own cleaning company, 3 kids, married to a wonderful husband who I'm friends with. And in this discussion, we dive into what that full life looks like and the ups and downs and the things that they don't tell you about when you go to school or when you get married. I'm really excited to share this one with you. I hope you enjoy it. I know I really liked it. Without further delay, get right to the episode. Thanks for being on the show, Rita.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you being here. I've known you, how long have we known each other? I think
it's been over 10 years.
10 years, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I've known you for 10 years. We started as trainers together. I was at your wedding with you and Heinrich.
Yep.
He's also been on the podcast. He's an amazing dude. And I've always admired your guys' relationship and just how you guys treat each other. And now life is getting busier. Mm-hmm. You guys have 3 kids? 3 kids?
Whoa, Betty.
Well, I can remember. So 3 kids.
Yeah.
You got the new house. Heinrich's in his career now as a chiropractor. You're beginning your career in real estate. Mm-hmm. So a lot of moving parts and a lot of things. So that's what I want to talk to you today about relationships and your relationship with Heinrich, because I value you guys and your opinions and just how you guys are able to still be have a true relationship and not become passing ships in the night.
Yeah, that is...
I know it's a big question. It's a big question. How do I start? So
where do you chip away at that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's a lot. So maybe let's just start with, like you said, you guys are in your careers right now, and maybe start by what do you guys prioritize? What are the daily things you guys do?
Ooh, so one of the things that Heinrich and I have both been talking about the last little while is that we are busy people. Mm. We went through a phase where we felt overwhelmed by life. Okay. There was a lot going on. Heinrich was studying. I was trying to work. We have 3 kids, and we were constantly in this putting out fires. And feeling like there was too much and there was not enough time, and so we didn't even connect in that. Oh wow! And in the last couple of months, we've both changed our perspective so much to being from, oh my goodness, we're so busy, to we're busy people. And so now we just... Taking
kind of the emotion away from it?
Yeah, and I think taking ownership of that. Right. And so now it has changed in subtle ways. We have a family calendar that we schedule, right? All of our things, so I can see exactly what Heinrich's up to. He can see what I'm up to. And that has taken a big weight out of our relationship. But it is so easy, like you said, to just be passing ships in the night, right? Yeah. Between kids, between activities, school drop-off, pick-up, work, house cleaning, the mountain of laundry.
Oh my God. I'm tired just thinking about it.
Never goes down. Yeah. So, and I love people, right? Yeah. I love to connect with people. I love people's stories. And so I have a tendency to draw people into our life all the time. Yes. So our weekends, instead of being a time of recuperation, become a potluck here and a coffee there and fire at the Egan's and, and so I've had to really step back and prioritize my husband. And that is so easy to say, but it's those little things that make such a big difference, right? So
that's amazing, and I was going to say it's interesting that you've noticed that, because I want to keep diving into that, but I love that you notice that, because most people don't. Most people just keep trucking along. Oh, well, it'll slow down when the kids are this age, and it'll slow down when the kids are this age. But then there's more sports, and then there's this, and you just fill that time with other things. So I love that you notice that. And it's interesting because, again, the show is called Kicked in the Junk. That was maybe one of your little like relationships, like, oh my God, where's my life going, right? You get kind of slapped by this, and you realize like, this is a lot, right? And you know, to tie back, I said, I love how you guys just kind of accepted some things there, and sometimes with the acceptance of that, take some of the weight off of it.
Absolutely.
And takes the emotional charge away from it.
Yeah.
And me and Emily do this all the time because we, you know, to kind of build on that, is that we say this lots, like we have busy lives. Everybody can have busy lives. And you go, oh, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this.
You get to do it.
Yeah. I was just going to say that. We changed our wording to like, no, we get to take the dogs to the park because we enjoy it.
Yeah.
We do. We always have a good time.
That's a big thing about building healthy habits. Yes. Right? If you say, oh, I should run more, and you're like, no, I'm going to change it. I get to run more. Like, you're almost there. Yes. You're not quite there. When you start to identify yourself as a runner, be like, I am a runner. Therefore, I'm going running tomorrow.
Yes.
That exactly takes that emotion out of it. And it's so much, you don't have to battle with yourself because you're already a runner.
Yes.
Right? It's that same kind of thing that we are people who are invested in each other.
Yeah.
And that's just become a part of our identity.
Absolutely.
I think something that Heinrich and I makes us a little different than the traditional relationship, if I want to put it that way, is that we didn't start just the two of us, right? We had instant family. I was a single mom.
Yes.
When Heinrich and I met, and
I'm really interested on your on the opinion on this, and I eventually I actually want to get Heinrich on here to talk about it because I want to know his, because Emily joined with the same kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? I've already had some kids.
Yep.
She joined. We have a different pack now, a different dynamic. So continue.
Yeah. So we had to start very intentional from day one.
Right.
Right. Because there was a third little life that was involved. And so we didn't just get to grow as a couple and then eventually, you know, have a foundation and then add in children. Yes. Where I think a lot of people, they think they have a foundation, and then a kid comes, and then you start to realize like, we don't actually have each other's priorities in mind. Yeah. And so, and I mean, we've been through such a journey over the last 7 years that we've been married now. But that has been one of the biggest things, and communication. It always comes back to communication. And you've talked about this before on your podcast. But it's communication in the little ways and the big ways. If something's bugging me, you know, in the poor Heinrich, in the beginning of the relationship, he'd notice, he's very intuitive, he'd notice that something was bugging me, and he'd go, Rita, what's wrong? And Rita, not wanting to cause conflict or hurt him, would go, nothing's wrong. It's fine. It's fine. But he was insistent and gave me that safe space. Like nothing that I ever said, if I was hurt or mad, he never got defensive. Like in our 7 years, he's never gotten defensive and thrown it back at me, you know, or attacked my character ever. And vice versa. And so we disagree. I mean, we're two different human beings, but that is something that I think has been huge in our foundation. Right. Is that we've never attacked the other person's character. And if something is wrong and you choose not to communicate about it, you know, or something is off and you choose not to communicate about it, I, from the beginning, had kind of this vision in my head, if you will, of like there's two people walking side by side. And when you choose not to do that, you're taking just like half a step away, you know, like, and then you're still fine. Like you're still close. You can still hold hands, you know, and then it happens again and you're half a step and you're half a step. But you don't notice, right? It's like the boiling the frog in the pot analogy that people use. Yes. And then suddenly you look at your partner and you go, how do we get so far apart? How are we two different people? You know how people say that? Yes. They say, oh, we're just so different now.
Totally.
And it's not overnight.
No, it isn't. And this is actually interesting because me and him actually when we released today was talking about that, is how it, you know, actually there's a lot to unpack there, but one, I love that that Heinrich had the emotional flexibility, emotional strength to be able to allow you to move and not say things and say things in that space. And I think that's something that I'm learning with this relationship with me and Emily, and it's amazing. And I'm realizing like, oh my God, if I can just like because we're both verbal processors.
Yeah.
So it's like, and this means I'm like, okay, she's gonna like say some stuff, and it doesn't mean it's the truth. It's just what, and she's trying to find it.
Yeah.
And so allow for that kind of, I think of like a storm. Sometimes it's just like a little bit of waves and it's fine. Other times it's like, okay, this is some stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, as soon as it starts coming up, then it comes down.
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, as soon as you're doing that, you allow the other person to just feel safe.
Yes. Oh, it's huge.
And it's so big because how many times have you been, in other relationships where you don't say it and you're like, ooh, no, that's not a safe space. I can't talk there. I can't say what I want there, and or how I feel, and or verbally process or whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So you create a safe space there, and me and I talk about this a lot. Is you build in that trust bank.
Oh, absolutely.
You're depositing in the trust bank all the time, and you're just doing these little things, and as you said, it's that little shift. So those moments of saying what you mean, what I found was that when something big comes, or bigger, something more challenging, if you've been open and had that open-heartedness, as we call it, very open-hearted, and you're like, hey, this is how I feel, with no expectations, but this is how I feel. When those big things come, they're not as big.
Yeah.
They're, there's a little bit of rockiness there. Maybe there's a bump and there's some this, that, but it's not bad. But if you were to do the opposite and hold back and hold back and hold back and hold back and hold, pretty soon you're a month, 3 months, a year later, and you're flipping out at them over a towel being left. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or you forgot to take out the chicken or whatever it is, and they're losing it. And the worst part is I've been there before.
Yeah.
I've been on that other side. I've been the person and been on the receiving side. It is an awful feeling.
It is an awful place to be. And it's not, I mean, why would you want to work, not why would you want to work through that, but like you withdraw so much into yourself.
Yeah.
Right? What's ironic is that I talk about this safe space that Heinrich provided, and he has rarely ever gotten defensive, and that is exactly what I needed, but that's not what I did. So what I mean by that is Heinrich would come with something that, was frustrating him about me or whatever, and immediately my hackles would rise. Like I'd go on the defensive, and I really had to take a step back and examine why. Yeah. Right? And so if we're having a discussion and Heinrich brings something up and he says, Rita, this is not okay, or this is really bugging me, or a simple one is like, Rita, you really need to prioritize your health more. Yeah. I know that he's only saying that because he loves me. I know he's saying that because he wants to grow old together, which you can't do if the one person is being unhealthy, right? Yeah. And so I know that in my head, but my heart is like immediately, oh, he doesn't love me, or I start to go into my own insecurities, and so I've had to teach myself when that reaction comes, I have to take a step back, and I'll even sometimes verbally say that. I'll go, Heinrich,
that's good. That's a good practice.
Oh my gosh, it was so hard, but like,
that's a great practice.
Heinrich, I don't know why this is unsettling something in me, or why I'm getting really defensive. I have to take 5 minutes and just kind of wrestle with it. Let's come back in 5 minutes and talk about it.
I love that practice, and I think more.
It's so hard.
I can see you're like right now. You're hard. No, but it's such an easy thing, and it requires two. It requires you two, and it's not. And we talk this a lot. It's not 50-50. It's 100-100. 100% of you saying this is what I need, and him allowing that. Versus, I know I've done that before. On mistake is going, but let's talk right now, and then realizing like, no wait, she needs a minute. It's okay. Yeah. And then trust it. It's going to come back and like, hey, let's sort this out. Yeah. An interesting point on that. There's a relationship coach, Annie Lalash, talks about that and how her and her husband, when they talk, hey, you need, could you do this and whatever, and you get kind of defensive. It's like she mentioned. It's like you almost have to realize who he's talking to when he says this. He's talking to the queen in you, the one that knows all, the sovereign, the one that knows that everything's gonna be okay, and that can that can see that things are gonna be all right, and that wants to be there, and that the calm one, but the small girl or the one that was upset, the offended one, or whoever, version of you is going, oh my God, what is he talking about? And the warrior might come out and go, wait a minute, like, so it's realizing, okay, no, he's talking to the best version of me. Yeah. And Emily's had this conversation with me before. It's like, hey, I'm talking to the best version of you. Yeah. And I have to recognize, right, like, this is, she's talking to the best version of me and wants that for the best. Yeah. So I gotta, it hurts. Yeah. It hurts a bit. There's been a few where I'm like, it feels like you're getting kicked in the junk. There's other times you're like, oh, that didn't sit. Really? Yeah. That's what you need me to do? Yeah. And this, I don't know about you, but especially in relationship for me, it was like, there's certain things I'm like, yeah, it's fine. No big deal. No big deal. There's other things like when it came to like sex or came to like communication stuff, I'd be like, what do you mean? And my poor fragile ego, that version just can't handle it, right? Yeah.
And I think something that I admire so much in Heinrich, I mean, he's a phenomenal guy on so many levels, but he has said quite often, like, Rita, I see you as this incredible person, or like he looks to my potential. Yes. But that's how he sees me. Not that he's trying to change me, because that's a different thing, right? Like if you have a partner and you're constantly trying to change them and constantly trying to make them better, but what you think, right? That's not going to work. It's not. Totally. What the subtle difference is, Heinrich could speak life into who he saw me becoming. Yes. Right? And so when I didn't believe that about myself, he was there showing up saying, like, Rita, this is a lie that you're believing about yourself, and I don't buy it. I won't stand for it. Yeah. And that also, like, I had the choice, right? Do I react in defense, or do I look at it and realize this guy has such a genuine heart, and he's just here to love me for who I am, not to change me. He loves me exactly as I am, but sees my potential, sees more, and pushes me to it.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful thing. And again, there's a lot to dig in there, but even for him to have the emotional flexibility and the emotional intelligence to just be like, hey, I see this in you. Yeah. I see who you can become. I love you now, and I can see this, right? That's such a cool thing, and I think we need more of that. Absolutely. Right? A lot of people need more of that in their relationship, or just even friends that can do that.
And the way that you get more relationships like that is you start stepping into that. Yeah. Right? Are you the version of yourself pouring into people? Right. Right? Or are you just there to have an idea of what you want from people? Yeah. And that's, yeah.
Absolutely. It's about that giving. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Totally. And there's so much, Tony talks about that. It's like Tony Robbins talks about that, if you're meeting people's needs, right? If you're meeting all three of those needs, it's me wanting to meet their needs, not the other way. You got to do this for me. You got to do this for me. Yeah. And if you're both doing that, right? Yeah. Such an amazing and wonderful thing. Yeah. No, that's really cool. And, when you said Heinrich was allowing, calling that part of you, right? I think there's so much there that, me and my wife Emily talk about this lots, is like, and she actually, I heard her say to me one time, and I was like mad at myself. And she's like, don't talk to the person I love like that. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, what are you talking about? I love you. I love that. Don't talk to the person I love like that. Yeah. And I was like, okay. Oh. Damn.
Yeah, you had no response to that. Like,
you got me. Yeah. Right, but it's a great, and we use it all the time now. I'll use it with her, she uses it to me. And it's a great reminder that, here's somebody that, loves me and wants the best. Yeah. And just not going to stand for, and good on them. Yeah. Thank goodness for them, not standing for us to lower ourselves. Yeah. Right? And allowing for that. So that's amazing. Yeah. So what other, like I said, you have your technique of that stepping back technique, which I absolutely love. What other things do you guys do in a weekly, monthly basis, daily basis to continue to make sure you're connecting?
Yeah. So, Heinrich, he's been doing this coaching program. I'm kind of sort of going to take half a step back to step forward. He's been doing a coaching program called Apogee, and phenomenal coaching program. And one of the things is to focus on your spouse for a whole month. I think it was back in May. And then in June, you focus on your kids for a whole month. And so not only had Heinrich grown so much already, which is another thing we could talk about, but he took a whole month to just focus on me. And I wasn't expecting it. He didn't say, hey, my program is doing that, right? Like he just had a whole month. He left me a note every single morning.
I love that.
Not just a quote or something, but something heartfelt that's spoken to my life. So I'm physical touch and words of affirmation. Those are like two ways that...
It's funny. I see why we connect. Those are mine for sure.
And those are not Heinrich's.
Okay.
Yeah, great guy, but like we're opposite in that way.
Okay.
And he was so intentional.
Yeah,
he was so intentional.
That's
where
cool.
with the notes and with, and I would do something and he'd come home, he'd go, Rita, wow, stupid example, but the house looks amazing. Like you must have worked really hard. I really appreciate it. And it was just, that changed so much, because and Heinrich and I haven't talked about this, but generally you get like the 5 to 7 years, right, in a relationship where things start to mellow out and you start to kind of live your own lives, and that just refocused us so much. And because he was pouring so much into me, I wanted to turn around and pour into him, right? Yes. And so
it's a beautiful thing.
It's an amazing thing, and Heinrich is acts of service, right? And so the ways that I started really intentionally, connecting with him that way was having having the house clean when he comes home, right? Because that's a decluttered space for him to just be able to relax and have dinner ready. And those sound like such traditional things, but it's so big. It's so huge. And I'm
gonna pause you for a second, and that ties into our old animal brain too. I mean, you think of our old caveman brain. Honestly, this is how I joke, but serious and half kidding, but half serious, is like how Emily won me over was through food. Yeah. No, literally. But you got to think, like, we weren't cavemen that long ago or whatever, right? Like, food, okay, you gave me food, you must be an ally, right?
Yeah, so, absolutely, yeah.
I love that.
So, and since then, we've just, I think, both been intentional is the word.
Yes.
To connect.
Yes.
And I think that's a big part. So my 3 things I would say is communication. Always, right? Yeah. Being intentional about the little things.
Yeah.
And then having moments of big times as well, right? Yeah. Whether, like, we have little kids, and so going out for an impromptu date night is not always practical, right? Yeah. So we intentionally try to make, I'm using the word intentionally a lot, but that is what it is. And we try to have those moments to connect. Even if it's something stupid, like we're playing a video game for 3 hours. Like, it doesn't matter. We're doing something together.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. I love that. And like you said, the key word there, like you mentioned, is intentional. Is it setting a time for each other? And I want to go back a little bit. You guys both, and I don't think people do this enough, because I know I haven't in the past, is recognize your love language.
Yes.
What are your 2? Yeah. Right? Or, I mean, it could be more, but most people it's 1 and then 2. Yeah. What are your love languages? Because it's truly speaking a different language. Me and Emily had to have this conversation lots, where it's like, right, like, for me, again, words of affirmation, touch. Awesome. Thank God Emily's touch too. Yeah. So that's works great. We're both, you see us, we're always hands on each other at any time. But hers is like time together. Yeah. She likes time together. Yes. So something as simple as, hey, I took the day off work, or I'm here and let's have lunch. Yeah. Right? But it took a while for me. It took that openness and that space to be able to, her say, like, I like this. Like, I know you did this and I appreciate it, but this is actually better. So, and I went, okay. Like, light bulb. Yeah. And of course, being man, I'm like, I want to serve, I want to help, right? Yeah. So, something simple as that.
I think for some of your people listening here who might not know what the 5 love languages are, right? As we talk about. So it's a book that talks about the 5 love languages and how different people have different languages. And like you said, you could be communicating and you feel like you're communicating, but that's not how they receive it.
Yeah.
And so once you know what your partner's love language is, being intentional and communicating that way. So if, for example, I cleaned the whole house and I had dinner ready for Heinrich, that was me extending, his love language. But if he were to come home and then not say a word about it,
yes,
then I would feel but I did all this,
and you're still not happy.
And so
totally, and that's the 100% part is like, it's like you have to, when they do it, and I always tell anybody this, it's like, you got to make sure like you let them know, like it has to be so obvious that like, literally look them in the eyes, like, thank you. This is amazing. I love that you did this. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Right? Not just
and then maybe give me a hug
appreciate,
or something.
Yeah. For Emily, it's a hug, grab her butt. No. Serious, actually. That's the funny part.
Yeah. My mom has this great quote that she says all the time. She says, a marriage is not 50-50. And a lot of people think that. You come together and you're 50-50. She says it's 80-80. It's 80 give on both sides. And if you have that intention, then, and sometimes it's more like sometimes somebody is in a season of less or more, right? Like it's a give and take. But it is that having that heart to serve the other person all the time.
Yes. And that's kind of our principle is like, we say 100-100 being that like, when you look at an issue or a problem, if you go, oh, well, if you split it, well, then you're both willing to only go that far.
Exactly.
And it's like, no, I'm willing to go all the way.
Yeah.
And not because you're not, because I know you will, but just because that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right? And the other person is the same. And then it's like, oh, these problems are actually really small and actually get, whatever hiccup, bump, whatever it is, can solve actually pretty quickly because we both have that mentality.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is so good. So I guess my next question is then, when was the moment that you realized you guys were in love, but you're speaking different languages? And how did that conversation go?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think the first time that I remember it happening, not so much in like which language are you, but we had just gotten married. Yep. And I'm also a verbal processor. And Heinrich would come home from work and I would go, hey, how was your day?
Yeah.
And he would respond with, good. And I was like, but, because for me, when people share things, when people share things with me, that's them showing, that they love me. Yeah. And so I think that's why, like, I love to invest in people's lives as well. Maybe it's ultimately selfish then, I don't know. But because if you, if I ask you, hey, how was your day? And you share all about your day, then I feel that connection.
Yes.
And so with Heinrich, he would not. And I was like, why isn't he sharing with me? Like, what is wrong? We are completely disconnected. Like, we are disjointed. Our relationship is going backwards.
No, we just got married and it's falling apart. As he's mowing the lawn for you or fixing something in the house.
Yeah, because it acts as service. And
but this is the funny part is that's common.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's super common. That's not, and then you talk to people and then you how's things relationship? Then you see, then you know them. And you realize like you guys, one, don't spend any time together.
Yeah.
And two, like, you can hear these little comments and things they say about their partner and you're like, oh, you guys you don't understand each other's language at all.
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of sad because it's like there's both love there, but they don't know how to communicate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a really good technique is me and Emily use is like, I want that, for example, she mentions she wants hers about spending time together. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So in my head, I could think like, oh, well, we do spend time together. What do you mean? It's like, no. What does that mean to you? Right? Not just like, oh, okay, I can spend, we can sit on the couch, whatever. And in her head, it's like, no, we want to go, I don't know, go to a movie or go for a walk or garden together, whatever. But in my head, I'm like, oh, well, we spend time together when we're cooking,
We're in the house together.
We're in the house together. Yeah. What do you mean? Or we're sitting beside each other.
Yeah.
No, it's like, so it's, what does that mean to you? And being very clear. And it's just to be so clear that it's like, oh, that's, especially from the guy's side, or at least in my view and guys I know, it's like, oh, that's what you want?
Yeah.
Easy. Oh, thank God.
And it comes back again to intentionality, right?
Yes.
And so say you guys are watching a movie together and that, you know, you're both happy, but you decide to sit on your phone.
Yeah.
Because like you just have a couple of things you quickly... Sure. What that's saying to your partner is like, hey, I would rather actually spend time here on my phone than be with you. And like I'm guilty of that too, especially around my kids, you know, where I just quickly have to do this, you know, and then they just see mom on the phone all the time. And what message is that sending? Yeah. And so I think that is an important...
So we got the girls in here. Girl, lie down. With the dogs and the kids. I love it.
That's life right now.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think that what message are you sending to the other person, and you know, with your actions and with your inattentiveness sometimes.
Totally.
And so Heinrich and I, we are very intentional about it, where you know, if we're talking and Heinrich's on his phone, it drives, not that he is a lot, but that to me is such a sign of disrespect if I'm talking to you and you're sitting on your phone. And so in the beginning I would make some snippy comment like, okay, well, I'll just wait, you know, and that wasn't helpful. And then we talked about it. So now if he's on the phone and it is something important, I start to say something, he'll say, hey, Rita, I do want to listen to what you have to say. Yeah. Yep. This is something I just want to finish.
Let me finish this.
Can you wait? And then I can give you my undivided attention. Yeah. Right. And so it's just that setting expectations. Yeah. Right? Not assuming what the other person is thinking. Yes. Not, you know.
And even we would say is it's asking with no expectations too, because like, can I say something? And in your head you're like, oh, it's probably whatever. It's some BS stuff, and it's like, no, this is actually super important. Yeah. Whatever. Or sometimes it's not. Yeah. But it's just realizing it's like you ask without any expectations.
Yeah. And I think we have this romanticized version of, thank you, Hollywood, but of relationships, right? Like,
totally. I think
you're going to meet, you're going to fall in love, you get married, and then happily ever after.
Yeah.
Until you divorce, right? Like, that's the message that is being sent.
Yes.
Yes. And it's almost, because I know I had this feeling, if I'm being honest, where I wanted Heinrich to anticipate what I wanted. I wanted him to anticipate my expectations and how I was feeling, because then it shows a deep, true connection. You know, like and it's so.
She wants some here.
Really, yeah. We'll put them down here.
That's okay.
Hi, honey.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to say hi to the camera? Say hi. Now I completely lost my train of thought.
No, you said we're talking about a romanticized idea of what.
Yes, and so it's we almost have this expectation of the other person should be, but like that's how they show love, is that they know how I feel, they know what I want, they know what I'm expecting, and it's so unrealistic, right? Because you are two different people with two different histories, two different communication styles, two different sets of expectations, and the ways you were raised, and whatever else you want to bring into that, and so actually communicating what you want to your partner is something that is actually more romantic. Like, you know, because
it you know what it is? It's not, I wouldn't say it's, because it's not in the general
romantic term, right?
But it's a foundation.
Yes.
You're building a foundation.
Yes.
It's like when you watch a house being built, there's nothing pretty about it until like the very end, when you're putting up all the last things. You're like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. But the very beginning, it's kind of messy. There's dirt everywhere, there's supplies, it's the same thing. It's laying a foundation.
Marriage is hard. Marriage is so hard. Nobody tells you that. You know, it's like you get married, you have your pretty day, and then, you know, like obviously marriage takes work. No, it's hard. But it's one of the most rewarding things in life, because you're building with someone else towards a goal. You know, you're building with someone else towards, and actually I think that's a big thing a lot of people miss. Yeah. What is your goal? Yeah. Like, what is the goal of your marriage? Yeah. Is it just to be in this moment right now and raise kids and whatever? Yeah. Or is it, what are you working towards, right? Like, we have skills that we want to teach our kids that are not going to happen just by taking day by day. It is day by day steps, but we have a vision of, like, we would like our kids to learn how to work hard, how to, you know, all these different things. And it's the same with our marriage. Heinrich and I have a goal for where our marriage is going, and so we can work towards it. We're not just floundering every day to make it to the next.
Totally, and I think that's definitely missing. And I think a lot of times too, I've seen with couples and relationships, it's like, oh, we want to do this, and it's like their goals are, and it's not that they're bad, but it's very like, oh, we're saving to do this vacation, we're going to buy a new car, and it's like these external things.
Yeah.
Right? Versus like, no, we want to, you know, for us, me and Emily, is like, I want to spend more time with her. I've been in a relationship, the wrong relationship, for a decade, maybe longer. I just don't remember or however long it was. So my point is like, I want more time.
Yeah.
Right? And so we both agree, like, no, this is what we want. We want more time together.
Yeah.
And so there's our like bigger picture. There's our bigger why. There's our bigger goal.
Yeah.
Right? Not just the next car, the next vacation, the next thing. And unfortunately, there's nothing wrong in those, any of them by themselves. But if that's only the thing that's going to make you happy and the only thing you're working together, what happens when those things don't come?
Yeah.
Or,
absolutely. Yeah.
Or they fade away.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't mean you have to be the same person, right? Like you can have the same goals and still be your individual people and still have your own goals.
Yes.
Right? Heinrich and I have made a dream board a few times now, right?
Awesome.
Where like I've made my dream board and Heinrich has made his.
We've done that too. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I heard about a dream board, I was like, "This is so much fun! We get to like cut and paste magazine pictures."
Yeah.
And this was before Heinrich, and then when we got married, I was like, "Okay, but like I want to make a dream board, but like life is so busy right now. Like I'm gonna set myself up for all these. I'm going to reignite all these sparks in my life of things that I, you know, to travel or to whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to feel stuck because I'm in this life now where I'm not going to be able to do it. Yeah. And this is kind of getting a little, I think, off topic, but that was a hard time for me.
Right.
Because I felt so stuck.
Yeah.
I wasn't working. I was at home with the kids.
Yeah.
Heinrich was off, you know, living his dream as a chiropractor. And it genuinely felt like I was just getting up, getting kids ready, going to school, coming back, doing laundry, cleaning the house, cooking, picking up the kids, right?
Housewife
like,
and mom. And
housewife and mom, and then like go to bed and lather, rinse, repeat. And so I felt really drained and borderline starting to feel resentful because Heinrich had all this free time, right?
Okay.
Like Heinrich had twice a day alone in the car by himself as he drove to and from work.
Oh.
It's like a holiday. And it, right? Like that's where I was at.
Okay.
And so
let's unpack this.
So because now, like I would say Heinrich and I are very much on the same page. And you started this podcast off going, you know, you have the house, you have all these things. And I still look at my life sometimes and I go, wow, I'm like 12 years old, right? Like I'm not, but
that's the beauty of it. And that's kind of the idea is like unmasking or kind of just revealing like, hey, like, yes, you can have all these things and it looks so cool, or somebody else might go, wow, you got this, and when you realize you're like, yes, this is. Yeah. But like, there's a lot of mess involved.
There's a lot of mess involved.
There's a lot of work. There's a lot of time. There's a lot of tears and you know, being upset and there's a lot of good stuff. But it's this blender of it. Yeah. Right.
And what changed for me to come out of that space of the, you know, the daily grind, whatever, was I had to re-find the joy in myself. Oh. Right. It wasn't about Heinrich make me feel better. It wasn't about you know, the house being cleaner. It wasn't like I had to really look deep down in myself. Why am I feeling this way? And what I ended up realizing is there was this disjointedness between who I wanted to be and who I saw I could be and who I felt I was. Right. And so, the last couple of years really had to dive down deep into myself. Okay. And to work on what I really want out of life outside of Heinrich and kids. Not that I wanted to leave. No. But
you're not Rita mom, Rita wife, you're Rita.
I am Rita.
And you are also these other, right?
And I think almost sometimes in a relationship, so we talked about like communication and intentionality and all that, but if you lose yourself, right? It makes it really hard to feel connected to your husband or your children, or to even have a drive to build, right? Because you don't even know who you are anymore. You don't even know why you're here, kind of thing. And
totally. And you know, it's funny you said that, because that was going to be where I was going to lead next was what are things that you do then to feel like you're yourself, to reconnect with yourself, to do the things you love, because you do have a busy life, or you get to have a full life would be another word I'm going to encourage you to use, a full life instead of busy.
Yeah, I love that. I love it.
But my question is then, is what are things you do to come back to you?
Whew. See, I would love to say number one is fitness, and then I think about it and I'm like, it's not. Because we all want to be fit, right? Totally. No,
but if that's what it is, then
yeah, and so I think a roundabout way to answer your question is I had all these ideas of what I should be doing, right. And no matter how hard I fought, I just couldn't do them or be that person. What I mean by that is like we talked about, I'm a runner, and so I wanted to read 10 minutes a day, or read a book a month. I wanted to exercise early in the morning. I would go for a run, 5 a.m. every morning. And then 5 a.m. rolls around and then I hit the snooze button and I don't get up. And it was like I kept disappointing myself.
Yeah.
Hi,
she's
Aaliyah. I know, she's having a great time. Just me fucking me. So I think what I'm trying to say is I actually had to step back.
That sounds great.
I had to step back and really look at integrity is how I'm going to word it. Integrity towards myself. Okay, so I would say, okay, I'm going to go run tomorrow morning at 5. And then I wouldn't, right? I would hit the snooze button and then I start my day out with disappointed. Oh, Rita has failed again.
Right.
And so I had all these areas, I want to read my Bible for 10 minutes a day. And then, oh shoot, it's, the end of the day and I didn't. I've disappointed myself again. I want to read a book a month and now 3 months have gone by and I'm 10 pages into 4 different books, right? Rita's failed again. That's where I was at.
Yeah, that's a tough place.
It's a really tough place to be.
And very critical on yourself too.
Yeah.
Right?
So
and I think from what I've seen and the women I know in my life that are in relationships, and I love Emily dearly, but she's in the same, sometimes she'll do that same thing where it's like, oh, I should this and I should start shitting all over themselves.
Yeah. So
and being very critical of yourself, right?
It is. It really is. And it's a hard place to be. And so what shifted for me was this simple phrase that my friend Owen Hone used. He calls it, Owen, right? From the gym. Okay. Yeah. So he talks about integrity momentum. And I love that because it's having integrity towards yourself, starting small and then building momentum. Yeah. And so I couldn't tell you all the steps that I've gone through from that moment to now where I feel like if I want to get up at 5 to go run, I will get up at 5 to go run. It's been so many micro steps.
Yes.
But I started in such small ways. Yeah. I can't remember which. I think it was every time after I leave the kitchen, it's going to be clean. Right? It started with something so minuscule. Yeah. Every time I leave the bathroom, I'm going to make my bed. Actually, that's where it started. I'm going to make my bed every morning. Right? Which people talk about, but it was...
And do you?
Most mornings.
Hey,
but it's fine. It's fine because I have built it up in other ways now. But it was starting to... Yeah. So instead of these are the ways I had to take time and take care of myself, what are the things to refuel my tank? I actually had to start 10 steps before that because I couldn't even get to prioritizing myself.
Wow.
I couldn't even get to filling my own tank because every time I tried, I would fail anyways. Right. So in hand in hand with not feeling like I was going anywhere, stuck in a hamster wheel, starting to feel resentful towards myself and failing all the time. Yeah. Right? I had to start with those small things of I'm just going to start being accountable to myself in the smaller ways and then build and then build. And then as that being able to breathe a little bit came, I could look at, hey, where did I want my life to go? What do I actually want for myself?
Now you have enough, let's call it confidence for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And just fortitude to go okay, now I can even point in a direction because you said it, there's no... I see what you're saying now is that, why point in a direction if you're it's not even possible.
Yeah.
right? If that's the mindset, is that, again, I think that's really huge, and it makes you think of how many, because you're Rita and very unique, but you're also, your problems aren't unique, right? And that's the beauty of doing these podcasts, is like everybody's unique in their own story, but they're gonna see some of them in that story, and to realize like, okay, dialing it back, and finding those little ways to win. I mean, I had this, actually, it was kind of ties in with last week I was feeling that way, and I was like, man, I don't know, I just was, for whatever reason, just kind of feeling poopy, let's call it, for lack of a better word. Just like, man, I'm not. And then I was like, I just want to win. And I was, funny, me and Emily were talking about, I just want to win, just something. Because it was just, we were going through some stuff. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I woke up early this morning. I slept in a bit, but I woke up early. That's a win. I worked out. That was a win. I had a cold shower. That was tough. Super tough. That's a win. Right? And those are just little, and now those make, I read and learned something new for 10 minutes. That's a win. So to go back, sometimes it couldn't even be that. Sometimes it's like, hey, like, I'm thinking about doing this. And I was, and I tried it. I tried the cold shower. It didn't work for me at that time, but I tried it. That's a win. It's a little thing. It's a little win. You recognizing that you need to go to the gym, or should, or that you're like, hey, I'm going to start planning this, and planning it. That's still a win. Right? Or on a flip, you can even look at what are wins. Well, I woke up this morning. That's a win. I feel good.
I took a shower.
I got a shower. That's a win. And so right when you start adding them up, you're like, wait, I'm winning all the time. I'm a damn winner. And then, and again, it doesn't have to be big things. It can be small things. It doesn't really matter. But you start realizing, you have a house full of people that love you. Huge win. Huge win. Like that's like some people, there's millionaires, billionaires that don't have that. Right? Very ultra successful people that don't have that. That's what more can you want? So it's just recognizing. So this is, me and Emily uses, like, it's our secret weapon, or our cheat code is just gratitude. It's just, hey, let's stop now and take a moment and just be like, okay, what are we grateful for? And I always constantly have to check myself and be like, right, because I want to chase this. I'm not there yet. Oh my God, I'm not there. Why is it not there? Why is it not growing like I want? And this. And then, wait a minute, like, I get to do these things. And how cool is that? And be really, truly grateful for it, not just rattle off something.
And the powerful thing is, too, when you start to build up those things, and write them down. Like, I'm not a journaler. I'm really not. I struggle with it.
You want to be a journaler.
I want to be a journaler.
One day you'll be a journaler.
One day I'll be. But honestly, just write them down. Even if you have a calendar. At one point, I wrote down something good that happened every day.
I love
on
that.
the calendar, and I made it for like 3 months, and then I fell off the boat, which is fine, because you know what? I had 3 months to look back. And go, holy smokes! Number one, look at all these great things that happened that I would have forgotten about. But number two, look at these great things I did. And so looking back is so powerful, and when you can grasp that and then apply it forward. That's where the next step comes. So what I mean by that, right, is, okay, if I go run every day, or if I go walk 10 minutes a day every day for the next 3 months, you taught me this. How are you going to feel? Right? When you get to that goal, what emotions are you going to feel? How are you going to feel about yourself? What are you going to be thinking? How's your mindset going to have changed? Right? And that makes it so much easier to be like, okay, well, I'm going to act like I've already done it. And then you get there. So
absolutely, and this is such good stuff, because again, my wife's a coach, and we do, we coach couples, and part of it is self first. A big portion of relationship, any coaching is self first. It's hard.
Which sounds so counterintuitive.
It is, but it's so true. How do you? I've heard this lots. Like, how can you expect some? It sounds harsh, but like, how can you expect someone, or let somebody love you if you can't love you?
Absolutely.
Or even be okay with you. Because if you're on the flip and you detest yourself or hate yourself, but want someone else to love you, how does that work? Because they could be loving you as best as they know how, and the way that you're saying, but you're just not accepting it. So you have to, it comes with that self first. It always starts with self. So doing these little things is so critical.
And you know what's interesting, Nathaniel, is that as much as I've talked about Heinrich saw my potential, right? And that's who he spoke into, and he spoke live. There was a while ago where Heinrich just started stepping up by himself.
Yeah.
He started getting up at 4:30 or 5 every morning. And I've said for years, I'm not a morning person. I'm an evening person. It's so hard. All these things.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And Heinrich would fight against it. He's like, there's no such thing as morning, evening. Anyways. But he tried to get me to get up with him.
Yeah.
And it was such a battle. And he just started getting up at 5 by himself. And he would read for 10 minutes. And he would journal. And he would, do these things. Gratitude being one of them. And then he started stepping up in other ways for himself. And I got to this point where I looked at Heinrich and I went, holy smokes, I'm going to be left behind.
Right.
Like this guy who's always been an amazing guy is now stepping into a whole nother level.
Yes.
And if I'm not there with him, it's my choice.
Yeah.
If I'm not stepping up too, I am choosing to stay behind. And that is where our relationship is going to go this way.
Yes.
And we're going to get to this point where we're going to go, oh, it's not working. We're just two different people.
And because you know what it was there? It was interesting, as I would say, it comes back to values. Because he valued those things enough. And then you start realizing, like, wait, I need to value these similar things. And you guys do. You value the relationship. But it's something to talk about and to realize, like, if a good example, let's say on the opposite, if he was all about health and you're all about a good time. Let's just go extreme. Let's just say extreme. Yeah. What do you think you're going to be having for dinner every night?
Yeah.
What do you think, there's going to be conflict.
Yeah.
What do you think you guys are going to be doing in your spare time? Conflict. What do you think, Friday night, let's say when you're, it's going to look like? They're going to be conflict. There's going to be different. So my point, just realizing I have to, it doesn't mean that your values have to be the exact same, but you have to recognize they're pursuing this heavily. And I have to, you're right, I'm going to get left behind.
Yeah.
No fault of him because he's pursuing what he wants, and these are things that are bettering himself. So it's recognizing, it doesn't mean that, me and Emily had this discussion, it doesn't mean that you're doing the exact same.
Yeah. Yeah.
I use this with Emily and myself in the gym. It's like, now I'm realizing we don't have to be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But we're both there together.
Yeah.
So maybe his practice looks a little bit different than your practice.
Yeah.
But it's the value is the same, and in the intention and the goal is the same. And like you talked about before, a little, to kind of go back on a little habit that we have is every time we sit down for family dinner is we'll talk about, okay, what are you grateful for?
Yeah.
And you're already there, so why not talk about something?
Absolutely.
And then the conversation leads into something, but that's fine. But we go around the table and it's 3 things we're thankful for, and they have to be they have to be different.
Yeah.
And then we'll do exactly that. Okay, tell me something good. What was something good that happened today? So you're getting this verbal journal in your time that you've already sitting down for dinner anyway, which I encourage everybody to do as a family if they're not.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much value there. Psychologically, there's a lot of evidence showing how much it builds there.
Absolutely,
and again, going back to that caveman brain, you're sharing food. It's like, oh, right, you are family because we sit and we eat and we...
Yeah.
That's a very, very easy practice.
Yeah.
And, especially with kids, I say I've done this before where the kids we want to go outside and they want to go throw the football around. It's like, right, we got to take the dog. Okay, well, start looking to ways to make these things work together.
Yeah.
Make them work together.
Absolutely.
Kids want to go to the park. Cool. I'm going to go too, and we'll all go, and I'm going to run around a bunch and just chase them. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not running down the road in my outfit and music on, whatever, but I'm also running. And we've done that lots, even where we're doing our sprints where the kids are running and we have the dogs there too. Yeah. And so we're kind of combining this and we're...
It is, yeah.
But it works.
It works, and it comes back to values.
Yes.
Right? If you want to instill hard work in your kids, or you want to instill a love for movement in your children, but you never let them see you move.
Yes.
Right? And so Heinrich, for a long time, I'm going to put him on the spot here, but the gym was his sanity time, right? It was his time to get away, and just a time he could unplug and de-stress, and so it was his holy time.
Yes.
And sometimes it didn't work because, I was busy and I couldn't have the kids or whatever, and I know that was very frustrating for him. And then he shifted.
Yes.
Right? In that time of stepping up and growing and learning, he realized exactly that. Like if I want my kids to love movement, but I'm never incorporating them in. So he started family workouts. Whether I was there or not, he would do family workouts.
Yeah.
And again, I was like, oh shoot, okay, yeah, I'm in. Yeah, I'll be there.
I just gotta be there now.
My kids have to see me too, and so get to see me too.
Yeah, and you know what? It goes back to what are your values?
Yeah.
Like you've already said, we've kind of keep harping on this, but yes, these other things are important. But what's really important for you? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's different for everybody, but for us and Emily, it's time together. Mm-hmm. It's our families. It's being there for people, right? And growing and learning. So when we have an opportunity to do 2 or 3 of those things, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You just do it, and yeah, you know, like we talked about, like, oh, but the backyard needs work, and this needs work, and you know, in the summertime, you know, we got behind on house stuff and the yards a mess. But I'm like, well, what's important? We want time together. We want time outside. Mm-hmm. We want to enjoy the summer because we live in a great place. Yeah. So we just do it, and the other stuff gets on the back burner. And you know what? It's always going to be there.
It's always going to be there. Yeah.
Right? Like the yard's always going to need work. The house is always going to need work. There's always going to be dishes to clean up. There's always going to be, you know, certain things that are important to do. Yeah. And I'm not saying you never do them, but it's just there's a time when you're like, no, you know what? That's fine. We've had that lots where dogs, sorry, you're not getting walked today. You're not going to the park today because this other stuff's too important and it needs to be done. Yeah. Or we might have to, you know, change our schedule somehow, right? But it's allowing for that flexibility.
Yeah. And again, that comes back to communication. You have to communicate about it.
Yeah. So I guess lastly then, what would be your, you said you had that communication tip of stepping back. Is there any other things that you've learned that you think other people could learn from your mistakes? Or something that you guys have done, a habit or thing you guys have done to make that communication so easier?
So we touched on love languages, right? Which is great. There's also different ways that people communicate. And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. Heinrich and I, at one point, we argued a lot. Like, we didn't fight. We just had differences of opinions. Yes. That turned into these stupid arguments.
I actually think I remember some of them, and they were like, it had to do with like how, I remember it was like, there was something to do with food, and like, there were some weird ones. I actually remember that, But he told me about them, actually, you both did, and I was like, oh my.
So what we realized though, is like I said, I'm a verbal processor, right? Yeah. Heinrich he's so intelligent. Like he's one of the smartest guys I know, and he can look at a situation and he can see it in his head branch into 12 other scenarios. And he can have, within seconds, walk through each of those 12 scenarios. Right? That's amazing. Yeah. It's not how my brain works.
Yeah, like Doctor Strange. Yeah.
My brain does not work that way.
Yeah, yeah.
So we would start talking about something. I would start talking about something. And then suddenly he would jump in on a word that I said. But like that word is not relevant to the point I'm trying to get
especially
at.
If you're a verbal processor.
Right? Yeah. Like I'm trying to move past it. But he's like, but you said this word. And 9 times out of 10, I wouldn't even remember having said that specific word. But I'm like, but it's not like right? Like I have a point to get to. Yeah. And then suddenly we're off on this tangent that I didn't even want to be on. I can't get to where I'm trying to go because Heinrich is so fixated on. Okay, I'll give you an example. Yeah. Our second. Yeah. It was about 2 weeks before his due date, so little Rowan, and we had to make decisions of whether we were going to get an early C-section, all these different options because of a longer story I won't get into now. So I had gone and looked at all the options, and I had a pros and cons list for epidural, for C-section, for natural birth, for early induction, all these things. And I was in Creston here in BC at the time. Heinrich was in California still doing his schooling. Oh, wow. So I call Heinrich and I go, okay, Heinrich, I have all the options. Like, I want to talk about it. And he had just watched the documentary, The Business of Being Born, which is all about home birth and doulas and whatever. Yeah. And he was like, would you consider a midwife? And I was like, it's not on my list. Like, we can't talk about it right now. Okay, so the pros of C-section. And I start off on the pros of C-section. And Heinrich's like, but these are all the bad things about it. Not that C-sections are bad, but like, here's all the risks or the cons of C-section. And I was like, okay, yeah, but I'm talking about the pros right now. And as I started, suddenly I'm defending C-section, which is not something that I wanted for that birth anyways. And I still had my whole list to get through, but he was so fixated on the C-section, right? So the point I'm getting at is that we communicated so differently.
Yeah.
And we ended up both being mad and going to bed, and then my water broke the next morning, so it didn't matter. But
moving on.
But
what was the lesson there?
What we realized is that when I start communicating, I want to draw the whole picture and color as I go.
Okay.
Heinrich wants to outline the picture and have bullet points, and then he'll kind of color in if he feels like it. So what I mean by that, right, is that Heinrich sees the whole thing in his head. Yeah. But I have to figure out as I go. And
you want the details.
So that's caused so much conflict in our relationship. And so what I would say to people is like, just figure out how you communicate differently and then take the other person into consideration. Yes. So now if I have something important to talk about, I go to Heinrich and I go, Heinrich, I need to talk to you about these 3 points. I'm going to start with this one.
Yeah.
And then we talk about it. And then if he gets sidetracked by a word that I said, I'll go, okay, no, I understand. But let's just like get through these 3 points. Yes. And then at the end, if it didn't, whatever, we can go back to them. And same with Heinrich. If he like jumps into this thing that, and I get stuck on something that he said because I don't understand, then he'll go, no, but I've already seen it. This is what he does. He'll go, no, but I've already thought about it, so don't worry about it. And I'm like, but I haven't thought about it, right? Like, and so it was just learning to speak the other person's language.
Yes.
And learning how to consider how they might be processing the information that you're giving in their way.
No, I like that because it's you're putting yourself in their shoes. Like, how are they going to receive this best? Not how I just got to tell you this thought and get it out of my brain.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, right. How can I communicate it so you understand it the best?
Yeah.
And and then the other person does the same thing. And
it's not tiptoeing around the other person.
No.
Right? Like it's not feeling like you can say what you need to say or that. It's I think if you step back and have a foundation of how you communicate.
Yeah.
Right? If you've already worked out the ground rules. We actually have a sheet that is our family conflict agreement.
I love that.
Yeah.
But you know what? It works.
It does.
And there's nothing wrong with it. And then now you can just practice it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I was thinking of like, when me and Emily have a disagreement or we're talking about something, we're just trying to sort something out, and there's a lot of emotions being involved. And I've heard a really great saying. It was, when the heart's open, tread slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was something that I really had to take into heart because there'd be times when I'd be saying something like, what about this? And I'd be trying to, because I care, and I'm like, what's going on? But then, she took it as like, well, you're attacking, and I'm like, I'm attacking? What do you mean? I'm like, I'm doing the opposite. Like, I'm here with help. But then when I realized, like, wait a minute, like, my tone is a little faster. Mm-hmm. I'm speaking quickly. Mm-hmm. And even something as simple as, like, if she was sitting down and I was standing up.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, oh, well, I can do this. So I can, like, lower myself so I'm not as imposing. Mm-hmm. I can, or at least be lower and speak slower and not try to, and for me, it was not trying to fix it. So I'm a fixer. I'll fix the problem, right? I want to fix it. So here, sorry, I just want to throw something in with that line. Here's something that Heinrich started doing that I appreciate so, so much because he's a fixer. Yeah. And I sometimes just want to verbally process. And so if I start going off about something, he'll stop and he'll say, Rita, would you like me to listen or would you like advice? Yeah. That's a great point. Oh my gosh. It has changed so much, right? I'm going to use that. Would you like me to listen or would you like advice? Because sometimes I do just want him to listen. I'm hurt or I'm frustrated and that's fine. That's a great rule. But what it's actually allowed, Nathaniel, is then I am open for advice. Yeah. Right. So if we're talking about something and I want to verbally process or spew about it, right? And we haven't communicated just in that quick little way, and he starts giving me advice, I get defensive, right? So what it's allowed now is for me to go, hey, actually, okay, I do want to talk about it, but yeah, I do actually value you, and I do want. So it comes from like he's giving me a choice, right? And so that has changed so much in our relationship. Totally. Yeah. I love that. Now I'm gonna actually start using that. To be honest, because now you're setting the. Again, conversations are like a little, mini weather system. Mm-hmm. Right? But what you're doing is just saying, hey, here's the path we're going to try to stay on? What kind of, you know, and this began because I'm always, oh, how can I fix, how can I make it better? And then Emily's had to express it, like sometimes it's just what I need, and I need to verbally process, and I need to just say whatever's there, and I need you just to be there with me. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. I want to do that. And then when I do that, she's like, thank you for this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now you're getting, you know, hey, here's what I need. You get the little reward, says thank you and whatever. And then also now it's like, oh, well, now I know I can do the same for her too. When I say, hey, you know, this is how I'm feeling, this is how I need to communicate. So you're kind of setting a path during that storm. Right? And going, this is how I want this to go. And, you know, without any expectations. But I think that's a really amazing way to do it. And especially for the guys, because I can't be alone. I'm sure not all guys are like this, but a lot of guys I know, they want to fix it. What's the problem? Let me just fix it, right? I mean, you just told me, and now you're setting the stage for that to happen. You know, you're saying, hey, you know, here's how it's, you know, here's the path, here's what the end result I would like, and here's what we can do. And yeah, it's gonna be messy, and there's gonna be things, and I'm gonna say this, and you might not, but it's, you know, take it for what it is. Right?
And something about that, like, foundation that you have to lay in a relationship is, an example is, I know that Heinrich loves me and wants what's best for me. Okay, which sounds so easy to say, but there have been times where there's something that's come up in me that I have to work through, that's hard and it's painful. You know, something, either a belief about myself or something in my past that's happened, and Heinrich will sometimes not let up. Like, he'll push and he'll push, not in a bad way.
Because he wants to help,
right? Like, but like he can see, hey, Rita's actually close to a breakthrough here, and if he were to back off, then I wouldn't get there. And so he'll push and he'll push and he'll ask and he'll dig. And there have been times where I'm bawling my eyes out. I'm like, I don't want to answer this question. Like, this is painful. This hurts. But because I know that the only thing Heinrich wants from me is that he wants me to grow. He wants me to know that I'm loved, right? And that this is a safe space.
And those are the things that most women want.
Right? I can actually work through and, like, get through that. And so, but we had to lay that foundation. And if you don't know where to even start, right? If you're somebody who's in a relationship and, like, we are so disjointed, we're different people, we want to work on it, but we don't, like, reach out and find somebody who can help. Right? Find people who coach couples, who can start to lay some of these things out, right? To be able to say, like, okay, well, how do you guys communicate? What's your love language?
Do you communicate?
What's your background, right?
Yeah, a lot of times people don't. Or their communications, a text or in person or impersonal, or they just don't talk about it. And that, unfortunately, is the worst part, because now you just build up a story in your head. And I've done that way too many times. Stories. And you're like, oh, this is it? Oh, well, that's not that bad at all.
I know.
Right?
But, and so, because sometimes you could just spiral, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I remember
and it depends on your emotional state, right?
It does, yeah. It does. And sometimes you spiral even in knowing the foundation, right? But then that's the time where you have to reach out. Like, when you were hurting, right? When things are really hard, when you feel like you can't get up, like you're in a deep space or like a dark space, that is the time to reach out to your person.
Yes. I would say that's probably one of the most important times.
It is. But if your person is not a safe space, that's where a lot of this conflict and friction and separation and distance comes from.
Totally.
Right? And so I think safe space is such an important thing for you and your partner, and especially, like, with you and your kids. Right? My kids know they can come talk to me at any time about anything. And my oldest now will come and he'll say, okay, Mom, don't be mad. I need to talk to you. And I'll go, okay, that's fine. Yeah. And not that I never get mad, right? But to have that space of expectation. And you need to mirror that, or, you know, present it or show it to your kids. You need to have that healthy foundation and safe space for each other, and your kids need to see that.
Totally. You know, something that I've had, again, because this is things that we're talking about, that I've spent a ton of time being, one, present with myself, aware and willing, to work on these things. But a good example is, you know, again, somebody in a dark space, you know, they're going through something, and yes, 100% you should open up. That's how you build relationships, and true connection is sitting there, you know, being there for someone. And for me, initially, it was like, I didn't know how.
Yeah.
I was literally, I don't know. And I literally was like, I want to be here. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. And so I started saying, again, that was like, okay, I can fix it. And then it was like, no. Like, realizing, like, sometimes for me, the practice initially was like, and I would tell, like, I'm not saying anything because I don't know what to say, but I'm here.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't care. It's not that I'm not listening. It's just like, I'm good. My first instinct is want to fix it or do this. So sometimes, you know, for anybody that hasn't and is struggling, is like, maybe the first step, if you're on the receiving side, is going, okay, one, when the heart is open, move slowly, very slowly. Yeah. Sometimes not even moving at all is better than jumping into something or what about this, or, you know, firing too quickly or not saying the right, you know, whatever. Yeah. So really slow. Yeah. For me, talking really slow. Yeah. Because I'm like a motor mouth, right?
You slow it down,
Slow it down and be very, very, and just like, and even if you say less, much less, it's going to be a lot better than maybe jumping to assumptions or saying something that could fire something off. And again, everybody's responsible for their own emotions. Yeah. But you also want to, again, not be insensitive and a doofus. Because I've been there before. Put your foot in your mouth and you're saying the wrong thing. Yeah, I know. A lot of the time. But yeah, again, allowing for that. And yes, on the other side, I would 100% agree. You have to open up. That was another tough one for me. Yeah. Is realizing, like, my partner actually wants to be, like, my partner wants to be there. Yeah. Wants me to say these things. And that was like, wait, what? Like, you want me to tell you when I'm sad? Are you sure? Yeah. Like, or do you want me to tell you when I'm mad or angry? Really? Like, you know what I mean? And like, yes. And so it was like, yes. I was like, oh. Yeah. Okay. Because in my head, I was thinking, well, if I tell you, you know, if you're having an issue, I want to fix it. Right? That's my first reaction. I want to fix it. But if you have a problem that I can't fix, well, then I don't want to give you another problem. It feels like I'm giving you the problem. And it's realizing like you're not giving it to them. You're just telling them and you're just sharing. Right? And that was a switch that I had to go, okay, right. Just because I'm telling them doesn't mean I'm giving it to them. They can't fix it. Yeah. Right? Just like I can't fix it. Yeah. Not necessarily, not right then anyway. So, yeah, having that switch. Yeah. And realizing that this is okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, it's important to grow yourself into the kind of person who is dependable in your reactions. And what I mean by that is if I go to Heinrich and share something and I'm being vulnerable because I'm hurting and he reacts in a really great way, but next time he might be having a bad day and I come to him with this and he reacts in anger or lashes out at me.
Well, now you're pulling out of the trust bank.
Right? Now I'm not.
And a big withdrawal. Then you're taking a big withdrawal. Now the next time you're not sure.
Yeah. And so make sure that you are that for your partner, right? Yes. Like that you're going to react the same way. You're allowed to have emotions. I'm not saying you, like if your partner says something that, you know, hurts and, you know, like talk about it, communicate about it. But that is such an important thing. And if you're on the end where you never know how your partner is going to react, right? That's a really hard place to be. You can't be an island and in a relationship. They're not wholly in a relationship. No. And if you're not in a safe space, right? And I mean that like physically, like if you're in an abusive relationship. Like,
or even verbally abusive, right?
Absolutely. Emotionally abusive. If you're being gaslit, if you're whatever, like you need to step out and get help. I'm not saying you need to leave. But I'm saying you need to go somewhere where you are safe and can process and talk about it and grow. But yeah, that's something that I would say is important if you're in a healthy relationship, to make sure that you are not just knee-jerk reaction. Yep. Right. And
it's funny because because I've been there. I've been on both sides. Yeah. Unfortunately, and then thankfully, you know, with Emily in this relationship we have now, it's like we're growing and I'm realizing there's one, been a lot of learning, and two, that was me in the knee-jerk reaction. or could have been a lot of it. But I've also had enough presence and enough calmness within myself to go, right, I'm feeling this, okay, but wait a minute, like it's not about me right now, or I can be here for her. Mm-hmm. So a practice that I've done for the last 6 years or so, 7 maybe now, I'm not sure, it's been a lot, is meditating. And I'll even tell him, like, you know, if we're having a discussion, or maybe we're, you know, maybe even sometimes it's the kids are fired up and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, time out. I need to go meditate for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes sometimes. Yeah. To get myself in a place where I'm present and not popcorn thoughts and not all over the place, and can handle and have some of that emotional flexibility and that emotional fitness. Yeah. Where I can handle this coming at my way. And okay, right, you're upset, okay, doesn't mean I'm taking on, I can handle those things. So if you are somebody that on either side, really, that is a practice I always implore. Yeah. And because it's taking time out of yourself to just fill up your own cup a bit before you go tackle on those things. Because when you do that, taking those things on is so much easier. Yeah.
And so it can be going like for a walk around the block. It can be, right, you can get out. I highly recommend getting out of the house. Like if that is where you are.
Well, you said that, you know, even yours, you said take 5 minutes, right? I need 5 minutes before I dive into this. For me, it's meditating. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And do that. But there's just so much value there. And unfortunately, when you're on your screen all the time and being with TV and whatever you're being inundated with all the time, that can block those out and numb it, or people will turn to this to make that feeling go away. So I definitely.
Well, it's an escape mechanism, right? Like and I think a lot of people don't know your phones and screens, video games, movies, whatever. It's an escape mechanism, and if you have this feeling of having to escape in your life, you really have to dive down into that. Yes, like whether it's in your relationship, whether it's in your life, whether you're single, like if you have that urge. You have to dive into it. Yeah. Go get help. Like and it's something that I can get so fired up about. Like I could talk for an hour about this because it's something that I struggle with. So I struggle with the screen addiction. Yeah. So binge watching shows and things like that. And I got to the point, vulnerability moment, but where I would get up in the morning and go hide in the bathroom from my kids watching Netflix. Okay. Right? Like, cause I couldn't deal with life.
That's a lot. Yeah.
I would hide under the covers next to Heinrich because I know that he wouldn't want me watch it. Like he's asleep and I'm under the covers watching Netflix. Right? Like it became such like it just took over everything. Oh yeah. So if you have something like that, or a different type of addiction, whether it's substance, whether it's screens, whether it's pornography, whether it's right, like that adds a whole nother layer into a relationship that can make it incredibly hard. And so, like, there's a lot that you can do in a relationship to build and to grow and have healthy habits and all that. And but I think you also need to recognize when you need to step outside and go ask for help. Yeah. Right. Whether it's for yourself, or whether it's for your relationship. Yeah. And a lot of people don't want to talk about it. Totally. It's easier to just walk away, right? Brush it under the rug.
And especially when it's things that are socially acceptable. Yep. Drinking is socially acceptable. Screens are very socially acceptable right now, and most people are addicted to them. And I always say this, and where focus goes, energy flows. Absolutely. So if you're focused on your screen all the time, how can you put energy into your relationship when you're spending 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day on a phone, a TV, whatever? How can you put energy in your relationship when your attention's here? Yeah. You can't. Yeah. So I would say definitely get that help, because I've done counseling myself and it was the best money I've ever spent.
I think everyone should go for counseling.
I've done it. It was the greatest money I've ever spent on myself. And it was actually somatic therapy, which is more body stuff. Yeah. And releasing the energy and the emotions that are built in the body. Yeah. And it was the best thing I've ever done for myself. And I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I would spend that money 5, 10 times over because it radically changed my life. Yeah. Radically changed my life. So do it. Like, if you need to find the counselor, the coach, the therapist, somebody to talk to, do it. If you need somebody to talk to, you can reach out to me. But even just to talk.
Absolutely.
But and it's funny because there's, we kind of think of it, maybe it's North American, maybe it's whatever culture, I don't know what you even call it, but this idea that like if we ask for help means we're weak, it's like no, that means you like recognize you're at the limit of your strength. Yeah. Yeah. And you need more.
Why would you not want more tools? Right. That's how I feel about it.
Totally. It's such an amazing thing. It's like, it's funny a good analogy on that would be, I know we're really going down it now, but I love it, is you look at pro athletes.
Yeah.
They have coaches. They get help from coaches, from assistant coaches. They watch film. You pick a sport, hockey, rugby, football, basketball. They watch film. They do all these things. They have coaches that tell them what to do and when and why, and help them develop these skills.
Yeah. They're coached in mindset. They're coached in
like everything, nutrition, sleep, you name it. So, and especially mindset now. Actually, funny enough, a lot of NFL teams are bringing on mindset coaches, which is super cool to recognize the value there. But my point is like they go for it. They get help. Yeah. Because they're only going to be able to go so far on their own. If professional athletes get help. Yeah. Are you you know what I mean? Are you too good to get help?
I know. And
really? Like
I've heard people say like, oh, but I'm very picky with who I share my intimate details with. That's fine. Okay, I totally get that. You should be
picky, but find someone.
But is it working? Like what you're doing right now, is it working? Because if it's not, maybe going to talk to a stranger that you don't know with an outside perspective and a whole bunch of tools that is going to change your life. Yes. Why would you not go do that?
Absolutely.
So, there's a whole other rabbit hole.
Oh, there's a whole other keep going, but no, this is amazing, and truly, I think a lot of people are going to get value in this because, again, this is like real life stuff, real life relationships, real life problems and issues that people run into. So to be able to take 2 or 3 of these things and be able to implement them, in my opinion, those are my favorite. Again, the easiest practices, I always say, the ones you can implement today and that take 10 minutes. Yeah. Take 10 minutes to be grateful. You know, if you're in a conversation, step away for 5 minutes. If it's too much, and just say, hey, can we come back in 5 minutes? Yeah. Take 10 minutes to meditate. Yeah. Take 10 minutes to talk about things you're looking forward to, or your goals or whatever. Like just little things. And you know what, you add those up, it makes a big difference in your relationship. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
This was really fun, Nathaniel.
Awesome. Yeah. Bring it up. We always hug it,